shit, look at this!
Oh, my Lord. Whoa! Hey, don't point that at me, son.
I don't know if it's loaded.
First, stop pointing it at me.
Hey, I can't do it, it's stuck. Give me the gun!
So what happens when you've mastered the craft of stealing like an artist so well that it makes you the artist to steal from? Because that's exactly what happened to Quentin Tarantino after his 1994 classic film Pulp Fiction was released. Out of all those films, the reason I would say Go is one of my favorites is because it's doing something so clever to hide just how much it's stealing like an artist. And that's exactly what we're gonna dive into throughout this video. I'm gonna be spoiling these movies throughout the video. If you clicked on this, you probably already seen both of them. So yeah, and you probably already know my style. So let's get into it. A lot of the things that these films have taken from the Pulp Fiction playbook is that they have a non-linear narrative and interconnected storytelling. And Go is no different, but based on my interpretation, it's doing something so clever that helps heighten its connection to Pulp Fiction. And this goes beyond non-chronological storytelling. Let me explain. Both of these films are broken up in chapters, so let's go over the prologue and the epilogue first. In the prologue of Pulp Fiction, we open up at this diner with this couple. As they continue to talk, they hatch a plan to rob the diner, and that's exactly what leads us into our opening credits. In the epilogue, we're reintroduced to this scene, however, now we discover that Jules and Vincent are also in the same diner. These are two characters that we've become accustomed to throughout the film, so it comes as a shock that they're there as well. We get the same thing from the prologue in Go, where we open up at a diner on a character named Claire. She's talking to someone that we don't see, but it's later revealed in the epilogue that it's Todd Gaines, a character that she's not too fond of. So for them to be at the same table at the same diner, it's unexpected for the audience.
You know what I like best about Christmas? The surprises. I mean, it's like you get this box, and you're sure you know what's inside of it. You know, you shake it, you wait, you're totally convinced you have it pegged. No doubt in your mind. But then you open it up, and it's completely different. You know, wow, bang, surprise.
So both films have that going for them, but let's dive into chapter 1. In chapter 1 of both films, we're following a character who's taking on a sketchy task. In Pulp Fiction, we're following Vincent Vega, who was summoned to take care of his boss's wife while he's out on business. He doesn't want to do it because it's a very risky task, but he's not going to say no. He doesn't want to lose any face with his boss. We get the same thing in Go with a character named Rana. So she takes on the task to cover one of her co-workers' shifts so he can go to Vegas. While she's covering his shift, she gets approached by two guys that are looking for him, and since he's not there, they ask her if she knows where they can score some ecstasy. She's reluctant at first, but she knows she needs the money. So she decides to take on the risk of selling them 20 hits of ecstasy. So in both films, at least in this first chapter, we're dealing with a character who is put in a situation to where they're doing something that they normally wouldn't do. And Go is very good at doing this because this is how you steal like an artist. It's doing everything that Pulp Fiction does, however, it's changing it ever so slightly to make it its own. The only difference is he's going in as a customer and she's going in as a dealer.
A top-seeded amateur.
Chapter 1 in both films also gives us an example of drug usage gone wrong. Whether we're looking at Mia Wallace, who finds Vincent's heroin in his jacket and mistakes it as cocaine, or if we're looking at the character Manny, who pops 2 Exos. The iconic dance number that Mia Wallace and Vincent Vega have in Pulp Fiction is substituted by a hallucination by Manny at a supermarket. Let's talk about dead celebrities for a moment. In Pulp Fiction, Mia and Vincent, they go to a restaurant called Jack Rabbit Slim's, where its entire aesthetic is made up of old Hollywood. The waiter, the waitresses, the host, they're all dressed up like dead celebrities from the past. In Go, we get a scene where Rana, Claire, and Manny debate about who's gonna go up front to run the cashier after their break. In order to see who's gonna do it, they play a game called Dead Celebrities. And here's how you play Dead Celebrities. One person names a dead celebrity, and then the next person has to take the first letter of the last name of that dead celebrity, and then they have to name another dead celebrity whose first name starts with that letter. The first person who stumbles loses. Rana ends up losing because she can't think of a dead celebrity whose name starts with the letter X. And even though she knows one, in that moment she ends up drawing a blank. This is equivalent to Mia Wallace's Fox Force 5 joke. And here's why. At Jack Rabbit Slim's, Mia Wallace tells Vincent that she did a TV pilot, and her character had a joke that would have been like this running gag that she would have done in every single episode if they would have got picked up. However, when Vincent asks her to tell him the joke, she hesitates because she's too embarrassed by it. It's not until we get to the end of their story, when Vincent drops off Mia at the house, that she builds up the courage to finally tell him the joke. If we look back at Go, Rana gets hit by a car when she's trying to escape Todd Gaines. As she's laying there left for dead, she laughs to herself because she finally remembers the dead celebrity whose name starts with an X. For all my Go fans who are typing right now to tell me that that did not happen, take a look at this script. So yes, it didn't make the final cut, but this is a scene from the shooting script that shows us everything I just said. And how exactly did Shiola Blue die? a heroin overdose. So you got X, you got heroin, and this is a perfect segue into chapter 2. So chapter 2 is my favorite in both Pulp Fiction and Go. They both follow this hot-headed guy who happens to be the catalyst of all of his problems. It all just plays out like this odyssey of unfortunate events. When Butch goes back to his apartment to retrieve his gold watch, he ends up killing Vincent. After he does this, the fire alarm goes off. But in Go, a fire breaks out when Simon's having a threesome with these two chicks at a hotel, and the fire alarm goes off. Before Butch leaves to go get his watch, he leaves his girlfriend Fabian at the motel. The same thing happens in Go when Simon and Marcus leave their two friends at the hotel after they got food poisoning. By the time they come back, shit hit the fan, so it's time to get the hell out of there. In Pulp Fiction, Butch is trying to run away from Marcellus, but in Go, Simon is accompanied by his best friend Marcus. Marcellus? Marcus. Yeah, see what they did there?
I'll be damned.
In Pulp Fiction, Butch and Marcellus find themselves in a situation to where they're dealing with two rapists. But in Go, Simon and Marcus go to a strip club and they're greeted by two sirens. When shit hits the fan in Pulp Fiction, Butch ends up saving Marcellus, and the same thing happens in Go when Simon ends up backing up Marcus. After saving Marcellus, Butch ends up taking Zed's chopper. In Go, Marcus gets mistaken as a valet, so some dude hands him the keys to his Ferrari. So him and Simon end up going on a joyride through Las Vegas. In Pulp Fiction, all of this started because Butch needed to go retrieve his gold watch. But in Go, when everything is all over, Simon ends up leaving his gold credit card. Not to mention that Butch is forced to leave LA and Simon is forced to go back to LA. And of course, these subtle parallels continue as we step into chapter 3. In Pulp Fiction, chapter 3 follows Vince and Jules, two guys who are in the same profession. In Go, we follow Adam and Zach, two guys in the same profession. Both parties in each films undergo an accidental murder that now has to be covered up. In Pulp Fiction, Vincent accidentally shoots Marvin in the face. But in Go, Adam accidentally hits this girl with his car in the parking lot, and that girl just so happens to be Rana from chapter 1. Both chapters take part in a home visit. One's invited and one is uninvited. In Go, we find out that Zach and Adam are this secretly gay couple who just so happen to be cheating on each other with the same person. And what's that person's name?
Jimmy in makeup. Jimmy? Jimmy? Jimmy?
No, not this Jimmy, but this Jimmy. When everything is said and done and this accidental murder gets resolved, both characters stand side by side and reflect on what the hell just happened. And that is how Go steals like an artist. This film turns 25 this year, and it's another one that I grew up watching. It's a cult classic. If you haven't checked it out, you gotta give it a shot. It's not better than Pulp Fiction, but it does everything it needs to do to take that cloth and make it its own. I had fun making this video, so hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, I'll see you next time. Peace.
Hey, kid, I'm really sorry about before, but it would be really swell if you could open the door right now.
Fuck you!
Bitch!